can rhythm be used in the way a language is used? So, what is a language for? One thing is that it's for communication. So, we can choose to label something and express what we experience using a language. So, let's take a simple example. If I experience something, let's say I see this. So I can say, hey, this is a speaker. And you could understand that when I say, hi, this is a speaker. So for you to understand what I'm saying, you would have to know the language I'm speaking. So that is labeling this as a speaker. You should know that I'm saying a particular sentence when I say this is a speaker. So you know what I'm talking about. And you need to have seen a speaker to really know what I'm talking about. So words can only describe experiences. The experience itself cannot be given with a word. So to recap, we have language for saying something, and what we say or what we express is based on our experience, and we can understand others' experiences when we use a language as well. So when we look at the languages we use in everyday life, these two things hold true. Now, the human mind works by association. So we associate something with something else and we learn. So I have learned to associate this to a speaker. I have learned to associate this to a mouse. That's in English. So let's say I were to take, let's see, what can we pick out? We have a pen here. So this would be a pen in English, whereas in Hindi I would say kalam. So depending on what language I'm using, I have a different association with this particular thing that I'm labeling. So when we use these symbols, which are meaningless in and of themselves, but they represent something, when we use these symbols, we are evoking something through association. So we can either learn it, we can learn what these symbols are, or we can make up our own. We can even choose to label things the way we want to label them, right? So the degree to which me and you have shared experiences and a shared vocabulary is the degree to which whatever I say is understood by you, whatever you say is understood by me, and we can sort of simulate the experience. I can empathize with what you are saying when you say it. Now, why am I talking about this? So, rhythm can be used in a similar way. So, to go one step further, let's talk about a particular kind of language use. So, I don't know how many of you are aware, but there's something called onomatopoeia. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So, what onomatopoeia means is words that evoke a sense of something based on how they sound. So, very simple example, think of a cow. When you go moo, we have the feeling of, oh yes, that's how a cow sounds. Or if I were to say meow, that's how a cat sounds. So these words are close approximations to what the sound actually is, or it is representative of the sound itself. So a few more examples. So the roar of a lion, right? That's one. In English, if we were to talk about the ticking of a clock, we would say tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. In Hindi, we would say tick, 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 tick. and each language has their own version for this. So, oh yes, one more thing, the sound of a zip. So it goes zip. So that's very similar to how a zip sounds. So these particular kind of sounds that evoke the sense of the object itself, like the thud of something falling, something heavy when it falls, it creates a dull sound, so that's a thud. So these kind of examples, these kind of words are examples of what we would call onomatopoeia. So we can use this kind of a thing, this kind of a system to evoke certain ideas in someone's mind using rhythm. So how do we do that using rhythm? So far what we have been doing is the more technical side of rhythm, where we're doing, KDD, DKD. We are naming intervals, we are naming time durations, and we're joining them up to create phrases. So what we can do now is, instead of naming them, we can talk about them in a different way. We can use vocal sounds to talk about rhythm. So that becomes a kind of rhythmic language. So when I say vocal sounds, we can use syllables like ta, ka, ta, di, mi, ki, na, tom, tam, dim, din. We can use such syllables, we can join them up together, and we can create phrases, just like we've been creating phrases so far. So simple phrases could be takadimi, tam dimi, tadim ka, takadim, taka, tadim, tam, tadim dim. So such phrases, we can join them up together, they become our words. We can join them up to make sentences, and using these sentences, we can begin to express whatever it is that we want to express. So how do we bring in meaning into these phrases? So there's two kinds of meaning. There is the more kind of onomatopoeia kind of meaning, which is it evokes something in terms of its similarity to something else, or there is assigned meaning. In a sense, all language is assigned, but some is more, there's more of a tight association, and there's more of this artificial nature to the meaning than with something else. For example, a computer. I have a computer right in front of me. Maybe there is some connection to the sound of the word computer to a computer, but to me it's just an assigned meaning. I've learned the word computer and I use it. Whereas something like meow is is more evocative. It evokes the meaning. So in rhythm, we can use certain things to bring in meaning to what we're saying. So let's look at the most basic thing, tempo. So if we have something going really slow versus something really fast, these two things have quite different meanings to us in terms of our experience. So something going really fast makes us be in a different kind of mental state versus something going very slow, really slow. So think of a heartbeat. A really slow heartbeat, not too slow, but moderately slow, is evocative of calmness, of a certain stability, versus very quick heartbeat, a very fast heartbeat is, indicative of maybe excitement or fear or nervousness, some kind of heightened emotion. Too slow of a heartbeat is, that goes in another direction where we're like ultra slow. Maybe it might be even boring or calm or very calm. It could mean so many things. So That's one way you can think of tempo. Think of someone walking at this pace, left, right. If they're walking like this, they're going quite slow. Versus if they're going, which is why when you hear the sound of a horse going, we don't imagine it going very slow. So there's a difference between a trot and a gallop. So a gallop would be versus a trot would be. So these speeds inherently have different meanings to us in terms of our own everyday experience. So that's one way. Another way that we can do is with our phrases, what we've done so far, long and short, and we group them. So long and short events, when we group them and create our words, our rhythmic words, we can use them also to create some level of meaning. So let's see one kind. So if we have a tempo, and I will say takadimi, 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 right? That evokes one meaning. And now if I have takadimi, 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 that's slightly different. Now let me do both one after the other so you see the difference. Takadimi, 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 takadimi. So those two are different. So it's dependent on when I start the phrase with reference to my tempo. So if I start it right with the tempo, takadimi, 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 that has one meaning, versus takadimi, 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 or takadimi, 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 or takadimi, 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 takadimi. So now let me show you all these four versions just so you can hear and feel the difference. So first we have takadimi, 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 takadimi. Now if I were to do takadimi, 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 all these have a slightly different feeling associated with them. And that feeling is most easily understood through movement. So rhythm is, if you're using the language of rhythm to express something in our experience, you could say rhythm is the language of movement. So movement happens in some kind of a time, in some kind of an interval, and different movements happen with different time durations. So all this can be described with rhythm, and we can actually feel this. So there is research to show that the part of our brain that activates when we are dealing with rhythm is the same part that is responsible for a lot of our movement or motor functions. So this kind of kinesthetic awareness of rhythm is something that we can really express using this system of phrases and times that we're using. So another way we can create meaning or bring some meaning into what we're saying rhythmically is through length, long and short, which we've done before. So long events generally are a bit more important. We pay more attention to them. So if I have a rhythm like tam, takadimi tam, takadimi tam, takadimi tam. So this tam, which is a bit longer, gains more of our attention, and it seems like a bigger thing that happens versus the takadimi, because takadimi has, it happens in a very short duration. So we don't look at it as takadimi, we look at it as an entire group of takadimi. So it becomes tam, takadimi tam, takadimi tam. So when we think like this, when we observe the rhythm like this, we notice that these long events gain a bit more prominence versus the shorter events. So if you think to your everyday life, imagine a very loud sound, usually like thunder. So thunder, it lasts for a little longer than, let's say, the sound of a dripping faucet. So each drop just lasts for fraction of a second, whereas thunder lasts for a bit more. And the things that, like the sounds of explosions, we feel they're bigger and they last longer. So these kind of sounds are long events versus a short event like the dripping of a faucet or snapping your fingers. So that's another way. Another way we can bring in some level of meaning into rhythm is by similarity. Okay? So when I say similarity, I mean if you have to repeat something or repeat something closely similar, we begin to pay more attention to it and we begin to notice the details within it a bit more. So if I have takadimi 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 tam, takadimi 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 tam, takadimi 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 tam. So when I repeated that exact same phrase thrice, so it gains a bit more familiarity, and that familiarity breeds its own kind of meaning. So this phrase becomes more important. So if I have something like Tadigina to takadimi takadimi tam, takadimi 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 tam, takita takadimi takadimi tam. So there's this takadimi takadimi tam, that part of the phrase, because it was repeated, we look forward to it and we engage with it. And the other part we notice is changing. So that we do pay attention to it, but it has a different kind of meaning versus this kind of similarity induced or repetitive kind of meaning. So those are some of the ways that we can create meaning within rhythm. So if you notice in all this, there is some structure, and this structure itself, the structure of the symbols, gives meaning. If you use it enough, if you employ it enough and try to express yourself enough with it, or maybe even listen or see this kind of rhythm being used, these symbols, which initially seem quite meaningless, when taken in context, develop a meaning of their own. And when many of us use this kind of a language, a kind of vocabulary develops. So this is a way that we can use rhythm from a very onomatopoeia kind of structure, where we are evoking something similar sounding or something similar feeling using rhythm. We're evoking something like that and building it into a structure like a language, like grammar, and expressing ourselves using this. So to take the language analogy a bit further, you can think of, if I have, this is my tempo, the tempo of the group, not the events. So within this I put some events. So I say takadimi, 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 takadimi. So that's 4 within each tempo click. So takadimi, takadimi. So takadimi, so ta-ka-di-mi. These particular positions within my tempo pattern, the events, these event positions become like my spelling. They're like the alphabets. I join them up into phrases to create something like takadimi, tam, dimi, tam, dimi, tadim, ka, takadim, 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 takadim. So if I have something like this, it creates sentence. You can create words, and these words joined together become sentences. Now you can do whatever you want with these sentences. You can structure it in a kind of poetry or song kind of format, with verses, with rhyming, with syllabic structure, with meter, so many things. you could just sort of create prose with it, where you just go free flow. There is a different kind of structure, not very verse oriented. Um, you could arrange it in so many different ways. You could Two or more people could talk using this kind of rhythm, where one asks a question, one has an answer. So takadimi tam, takadimi tam, takadimi tam. So these were the two people. So you can have a conversation, you can have monologues, like in the sense of having a speech. So many equivalents that you can find, so many parallels you can find with language. So these are some ways. Now, some linguists actually consider onomatopoeia to be the first type of language that ever came about, because like you saw a bird and you went chirp chirp to describe it to someone else. So there's a good chance that even if you don't know what it means, the chirp, you see the similarity between the sound chirp and the sound of a bird, and you think, I guess this person was talking about the chirping of a bird. So there are some hypotheses which indicate that this was the first kind of language to develop. So whether or not that's true, what we can do is simple exercise. So try to observe rhythms around you. Just in your daily experience, try to observe the timings of different things happening, different events taking place. Is there some order to it? Can you describe it with a rhythmic language? Can you build something out of it? So, simple example, if I have the sound of a horse, like I was talking before, so how can I best describe the sound of a horse rhythmically? So if I think of, okay, so I can maybe put that into syllables. I could say takadam, 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 and I can build on this. Takadam, 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 takadam. That's one way I can do something with it. This is an experience that I have had, where if I'm in a train, in India at least, I've only been in trains in India, so the sound that a train makes while it's going on the railroad, on the tracks, is tick 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 tick. Is that the right one? Tick 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 tick. Yeah, this is the rhythm that I remember. So if you've ever paid attention to this, or the next time you're in a train, so tick 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 ta 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 tadim dim tadim dim tadim tam tadim tam tadim tom tadim tom. So this sort of represents that kind of a rhythm to me. Tadim tom tadim tom tadim tom tadim tom tadim tom tadim tom. And now I can build this into something. Tadim tom tadim tom takadimi takatam tadim tom takadim takadim tadim tom takadim tadim tom takadim tadim tom. So that's a very simple composition that is just based off the theme of the railroad, the rail track sound, and I develop it into something else. So I can tell a story using this. So what would be the story of someone walking and then getting into a run? It would be ta ka 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 ta taka 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 takadimi 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 takadimi. So that's one way you can talk. It's just a very simple increase in tempo. What if someone had a limp? So instead of walking taka taka, they walked tadim tadim, 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 tadim. So they spend more time on one leg versus the other. At least that's how I do when I limp. So these are some very simple examples. So look around, listen, observe, see, use all your five senses, and try to see the rhythms that are already there around us. Use them as inspiration and just try to turn them into a language, like in the way that onomatopoeia uses that kind of evocative kind of speech. So that's about it for this time. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask them now or later, even in the comment section of this video. Join the Discord group, Rhythm for All. The link will be in the description below. And in general, yeah, just have a great time, have a great week. Experiment with rhythm. We are going to be starting this kind of a vocal sound system for rhythm moving forward. So using these syllables, this is called solkatta. It is based on the sounds used in percussion in Carnatic music, South Indian classical music. And these sounds are said to be based on the sounds of a mridangam, which is a double-sided barrel drum, which is used in Carnatic music. And it is used in this system of salkatta, is used in many other instruments. In fact, it becomes a common language for percussionists or musicians, who are not percussionists, singers, other instrument players, to talk about rhythm, to understand rhythmic structures. This becomes a very convenient way. So this is what I have been trying to learn for the last few years, and it's helped me a lot in my music and in my understanding of rhythm as well. So I hope you enjoy what's to come. Next week we'll be going into phrasing using solkatta and how to create different phrases using these sounds. Or maybe we can even go into the basis of these sounds, like why these sounds versus some other sounds, what's the reason. Yeah, so we'll go into that later. Until then, have a great week. This is Rhythm for All. I'm Anirudh Venkatesh, and see you next time. Bye bye.